Hi everyone, it's Elise from Kit and Clatter and welcome to our unicorn colouring class for markers and pencils. This class is a special freebie for Christmas in 2018 as a thank you to all of our community members. During 2018, we were able to reach over 20,000 members in our Facebook community, and your support has enabled us to do some amazing things, such as free craft workshops with the Cancer Council and Lady Salento Children's Hospital in Brisbane, Australia. Thank you so much for taking a time out for you and prioritising you today. Your support helps us to help others, and I'm so very grateful. If you're new to Kit and Clatter, come and check out our website at kitandclatter.com. We have pencil and marker colouring class available for beginners to advanced, along with a whole bunch of freebies as well. We also have free colour blend charts for markers and pencils, marker to pencil conversion charts under our colour blends tab, and also a colouring FAQs area under the FAQs tab with helpful information on getting started, printers, inks, resizing and using digital stamps, and so much more. So in this class today, we'll be learning about colouring unicorns and horses, looking at the contours of the face here to create depth. You receive the class image for free in both the option of a unicorn or a horse, so you can colour either depending on your preference. Plus, we'll also be learning some basic rainbow and hair colour techniques that can be applied to absolutely any image at all. So this class has been formatted like our monthly colouring classes that we sell on our website, just so you can get a bit of an idea how these run as well. These are our most popular classes, and they teach a big variety of techniques to enhance your colouring in the one project, so you're learning and adding to your repertoire of skills for after the class. So we always teach you real art fundamentals and not just how to colour, so not just what I'm doing, but the why behind these techniques. And we're creating a finished project instead of just learning on exercise sheets here today. So even though our monthly projects can look a little scary, we always break everything right down to the very basics so anyone can join in regardless of your experience level. It is important though to manage our expectations before jumping in with a lesson. So when learning anything new, please keep in mind that it takes time and practice to refine technique. The aim of this class is not for your colouring to look like mine or anyone else who you may see share the same lesson online. We all have different amounts of practice that influence how advanced our colouring looks. Don't compare your work with others because you don't know how many classes or years colouring they've done behind the scenes. So instead, be inspired by what you see to where you can get with practice too. Your work is no less special because you're still learning. So please remember this and don't ever hold back on sharing your practice as well. So when we realize there's always going to be others with more and less practice than ourselves, then we can take that pressure off trying to be perfect and just enjoy our journey. Mistakes are crucial to learning. I want you to embrace them and I want you to make them today. Be proud of yourself for having a go. Share your colouring to celebrate where you are right now on your journey instead of where you wish you were. And every time you practice, know that you're progressing and learning and growing to that next level. Right now, I want you to write practice at the top of your page. And whenever you feel a little bit overwhelmed or maybe a little bit discouraged that you're not quite getting there, I want you to flick your eye to that word just to remind yourself that we're here to learn and not here to be perfect. Now, if you feel stuck at any point during the class or feel like you aren't getting the results you want, your classes at Kit and Clatter always come with free, private, personalized one-on-one tutoring with myself. So don't hesitate to reach out anytime, either on Facebook Messenger privately so we can chat one-on-one, or via email. You can send a photo through anytime and we can work together to help you feel more confident to keep taking those next steps forward. So as your class teaches you real art fundamentals, before we jump in, let's touch on the most valuable technique to help your colouring look more realistic, and that's light source. Now, when we colour anything at all, we need to be thinking about some art fundamentals that help inform our decisions in our colouring. Now, one of the most important art fundamentals that you will learn is the light source. And it's tricky to learn it at the start because it's a true art technique that not a lot of us really know about until we're taught it. But basically, whenever we're coloring an object, we need to imagine that light is illuminating the scene. So there's sun up in the sky or there's lights in the ceiling, and they shine down rays of light that hit the objects in our scene and illuminate them. Wherever those rays of light come down and hit first, they are our brightest areas, and we call them our highlights, and we show these using our lightest colors. The opposite of this is our shadow. So they're the darkest areas and the part that the light hits last. So we represent these with our darker markers. Now, in between highlight and shadow, we have midtone. Now, midtone is generally considered the true color of an object, as it's neither affected by light or shade. So that's a really good way of picking color blends as well. You can always start out with what you think the midtone color is going to be, and then picking markers lighter for your highlight and markers darker for your shadow. If you'd like to learn more about color theory and how we pick the colors to suit this, pop over to our website, kitandclouder.com, and click on Classrooms, then Markers 101. It's a free class there that goes through color blends and how we choose them to work with light source and more light source instruction as well. But one of the most important things that we need to look at is cast shadow. Now, I've popped a pen over my hand here, and can you see the shadow that's on my hand? That's our cast shadow. It's a shadow that's cast by an object in front or above, which is my pen, onto an object below or behind, which is my hand. And what this does is it actually shows distance between objects. So the closer my objects are together, the darker and harder the shadows are here. Then the further apart they get, the lighter and more dispersed our shadows become. So you can see utilizing cast shadows in our scene is very important to help to show different depth and levels in what we're seeing in a scene. So we're going to have areas that pop out towards us and areas that look like they're sitting further back. Don't worry if it sounds a little bit too overwhelming. We're going to be learning a lot about it today, and if you would like more of that basic instruction again, feel free to pop over to our website and head to that Markers 101 class where we'll break it down even further for you into those real basic fundamentals. Now we're going to be getting ready to move to chapter 1 of our colouring video here today, and we're firstly going to be working on skin tones. Welcome to chapter 1 of the video tutorial. In this chapter, we're firstly going to be going ahead and colouring up the beautiful rainbow hair. Now, this is such a fun technique to do. It can look a little bit scary, but we're going to break it down to help you start understanding the basics of how to approach this technique. Now, you can apply this to any image. It's not just for unicorns. So any of your character stamps that you want to add this to, or even if you've got other animal stamps that you want to try a rainbow technique on. Go through your class here today, and then I'd encourage you to grab out one of your favorite images and practice that technique again so you're really learning and refining it. So keep in mind, if this technique is new for you, that this here today is probably going to be your worst go at it because it's a new technique. We don't yet have that experience behind us. So it's as we practice, that's when we start to refine. Now, how are we going to do this video here today? I'm going to show you both in markers and pencils, this entire image. So what I'm going to do at the start of each chapter is I'm just going to break down the technique firstly. We're going to look at things like light source and a little bit of the theory before jumping into the coloring, because this is what's going to help you really learn and understand that technique. Then I'm going to break it down and I'll split into pencils video first and then the markers video. So you can just go to whichever medium that you're using. I would encourage you though, if you do own both mediums, or even if you're having trouble understanding some of the technique and want a little bit more instruction, to still watch the other part of the video. I always film in real time as I color, so a lot of the tips are different in each part of the video tutorial. Okay, before we get started on the colouring, let's just take a look real quickly at the colours that we've used here. Now, you can use absolutely any colours at all to do this technique. So even if you don't own the colours I'm using here today, or you're not a big fan of these particular colours, you might like more vibrant colours, you might like to take this more into the reds, the oranges, rather than sort of these pastel-y pinks and purples. So you can really customise this look to suit you and the image that you're colouring. I've chosen to use colours here that are very close together on the colour wheel, so they're going to blend really effortlessly together, really nice smooth transitions. So we've got the pinks into the purple, into blue, green, and yellow. So again, colors that are close together on the wheel, we know that they're going to blend together nicely as they transition. I'd recommend this for the easiest approach rather than choosing colors that are not so close together. It's going to be a little bit harder to blend them in seamlessly. Other ideas that work really well with this technique is picking, say, a cool color scheme or a warm color scheme. So you may even do reds to oranges to yellows, or you may do, say, purples into blues into greens, just as the whole thing. And you may experiment with different tones of the one color. So you may have, say, 2 or 3 different types of blues in there. It can give you a really nice effect. So experiment with this technique after the class lesson and have a bit of a play around with how you can adjust this to suit the look that you're after. We're going to go over things like light source as we actually get into the colouring in each medium. So I'm going to take it over now to our pencils and we'll start doing some colouring. If you're using markers, you can skip ahead to the markers portion. Okay, I'm ready to go with my pencils here today. Now before we get started, I just wanted to run over some really basic pencil blending methods just to help you feel comfortable with the techniques. Now, one thing that's really crucial with pencils is the paper that you're using. I'm using a paper called Mi-Tinte by Canson here today. It's just one of many different types of pencil coloring papers that are available. It's really important to use a good drawing paper with a tooth with these types of techniques. Now, tooth is a printed texture, so I'm not sure if the camera really picks this up, but my page has a light texture printed all over the top. Now, Mi-Tinte is a special paper. It is a more premium one, and it's one of the only ones to actually be dual-sided. So I'm not sure if this picks up in the light, but you can actually see this side is a different texture as well. So this rougher side looks like little honeycomb pieces. This is more for chalks and pastels, so a bigger tooth to hold those chalky mediums. The other side still has texture to it, it's not smooth, but this texture is more for coloured pencils. Now we've got a whole bunch of different brands of paper on our website that you can take a look at. If you head to kitandclouder.com, click FAQs, then colouring FAQs, then papers. Now if you're using a really smooth paper here today, that's okay if you want to use this for your practice, but keep in mind that it does actually impact on your ability to blend. So what we're really going to ask you to focus on today is going really nice and slow and soft with your shading so it can help you just build up those layers. So I'm going to show you how we do our basic pencil blending. Now you can use any colors for this if you'd like to have a go. Basically with pencils, it's all about building up color really slowly and really softly. And you can see here I'm just going straight over the top, over and over, really nice light and soft layers. Now you can see that with the shading I've done, you get all these little white speckles underneath, and that's the tooth of my paper showing through. The idea with pencils is that as we come in with all the different colors, we're overlapping and overlapping, slowly filling in that tooth of the page. So you can see there, the more layers that I'm adding, the smoother it's going to get. Now with pencils, you'll come to the end and you have some slightly little speckles that are left over. And what we do here is a step called burnishing. So we make sure that our pencil is really nice and sharp, and we come over with really small little circles and we flatten the remaining tooth down. And you can see it gets rid of all of the texture there in the paper. By then, you'll have built up the color and the tone of the blend to what you're happy with and have all of your shading and everything in there. So you've got a lot of depth and we're just sealing it off. Now, when you're doing your coloring with pencils, especially when you're starting out, it's really normal to have too much pressure. So what I see a lot of people do is they come in and they're trying to flatten that tooth down at the start and they just do the color nice and hard. Then what happens is you come in with your next color and we come straight over the top, and it doesn't really blend here. We're not really creating any tone because we've flattened that tooth down. There's no grip that's really left in the paper. But then when we come over the top, nice and hard, this is what we sort of ended up with. We don't have a really soft transition through the colors. You can still see that line there. And you may find, especially if you do use smooth paper, that you do get a lot of lines when you do your coloring. Now, paper with a tooth like this, good drawing paper, that allows us to build up and eliminate some of these lines because we've got the ability to layer softly. So what we actually want to do is we want to come in. If you're a little bit too heavy-handed, this is a good little tip to give you. So ideally, we want to blend really, really softly. Like I showed you in the first part over there, we build up with lots of really, really soft layers. And that way, when we come in with the next color, we go over the top and we continue to blend out. And then we build it up back and forth, soft layers. Usually we work with more than 2 colors, and then you'll be able to really build up a soft color blend. However, if you're coming in, this is a good little tip. If you use too much pressure, and you come in a bit hard like this, what I want you to remember is a little tip called fuzzing up the edge. And I want you to grab your pencil, usually hold it back a little further will allow you to put on less pressure as well so you can keep it nice and soft. And I just want you to come really softly over that edge there. This is fuzzying up the edge here, making that really, really soft on the end. And we just keep going over the top of that line until it disappears. Then when we grab our next color, we're able to come over the top. Take your time, really nice, small, soft circles when you're doing your pencil blending. And notice I'm going over the top, really little circles. I'm able to blend that out without that line in between. So that's a good little tip to keep in mind. Now we always want to keep our pencils sharp as we work, and that way you'll be able to really push tooth flat in the paper. Now another tool that you want to use as well, I use our Kitten Clatter pencil dusters. Now you'll notice every so often through the video, I give my page a little flick with this duster like this. What this is doing is it's helping to remove the pigment from my page. You'll notice you get all little speckles that sort of fall off your pencil. And if you're not careful, you can accidentally push them down and discolor the page. Just by doing your little brush, it's just going to help keep your area clean. Now, if you don't have one of the Kitten Clatter dusters, you can use anything else in your stash. You can use a feather. I used to use a feather before I used these ones. They do tend to break a little bit, but they're really, really soft. Another thing you can use is a makeup brush or an art brush, but they can be a little bit harder than this. So you want to be really, really gentle and don't brush down with force. Otherwise, you can push the pigment down into the page. If you did want to take a look at our Kitten Clatter dusters, I had these made especially for our community after my feather broke. I used to use them on a lot of our older videos. So I had these made especially. They're super, super soft, super soft. So softer than a makeup or an art brush, so you're not pushing the pigment flat. And they're multicolored as well, so your bristles don't get so dirty. You can find them on our website under the accessories tab in the shop, and they're free shipping worldwide as well, if you did want to grab one. But that's all of the basics, I think. So that's all you need really to get started. And now we're going to go ahead and do some coloring. So we have to run through all those basics before we jump in. So let's bring our unicorn back. Now, first things first, we want to look at light source. So remembering cast shadows. When we have that object that's sitting in front, it casts a shadow onto the object behind. That's always what we want to be doing first. Now, when we're working with rainbow techniques, it can be really tricky to think about cast shadows in each different color because it's hard to sort of switch between them when you're focusing on the theory side of things. So what we're going to do, instead of breaking down a pink, a purple, a blue, and a green to do all of those cast shadows, we're just going to use one gray pencil. And the good thing about using a gray, we can just do the cast shadows over the entire hair first and then come back and add our colors over the top. And it's not going to impact what that final result looks like. So this is a really simple way just to do all your underlying theory first, and that way you won't forget it as you continue on through the lesson. So when we look at our image, we want to look for objects that are sitting in front. So we can see automatically this rose here is sitting in front. So I'm using my 20% cool gray, and you can use any gray at all you like for this step, and I'm just coming straight underneath that rose. Now I'm making sure my cast shadow is nice and thick. Thickness is what gives us dimension. We can see the distance between objects. So coming around both sides of the rose there nice and thick so that they pop off from the head of the unicorn. Keep that pressure light. We don't want to flatten the tooth here because we're going to come in with all of those other colors. So this is just a guideline step. Now the next thing we can do is we want to look at the outline of the image and see what's happening here. So if I come down along the front, I can see I get to this point here and there's an intersection. And you can see that this line runs and stops here. And then I can see that this section comes along and sits in front. It crosses straight over the top. So what this looks like to me is that this strand of hair here is sitting in front of this one to the left. Now remember, when something's in front, it casts a shadow back. So you can do this anytime you feel stuck. So the object that's behind is the one on the left. So we come around the one that's in front and add a little bit of shading. Now I actually like to extend my lines up. And I'm looking at my image to see what's actually happening here. And I can see that we've got this little line coming from the top. And what I want to do is I want to make that whole line here a section. So I'm going to make this a whole section in the hair. That's going to help break it all down. So when we work with hair, we're only doing a quick look at hair here today. So this isn't as in-depth as some of our other classes, but basically we want to stop looking at hair as one big mass. We want to think of hair as lots of little sections that we can break down, and each of those sections is going to have its own highlight, midtone, and shadow. So hair isn't just one object, it's many different little ones. So let's continue around. We come along here and I can see intersection here. Now this section here looks like it's sitting behind this one because we can see this line comes up, crosses over and continues on. So let's now add in our really nice thick cast shadow around that one. Remember, keep your pressure nice and light. So you're not flattening that tooth down. I'm going to do the same. I've got a little line here. I'm going to use that as a little section. I like to continue the lines further out to a point as well. Just keeps it all nice and soft. I'm bringing that up toward the top of the head here. Got a little section over here. Got an intersect here I can see. I'm going to bring that line up. And even this section here looks like that's sitting behind. So I'm going to bring the pencil in here and I might connect those areas. Cast shadow on this side as well. Along here, got a little cast shadow on this side. Cast shadow here. Now you can actually make this into your own section of hair. So I wanted to show you how to do this as well because this is a really large gap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along here and draw up my own lines to create some sections. Just showing you how you can customize your images. So you're not always stuck with what the artist has drawn. You can see there I've created 3 little sections along the bottom, and you can add in a little bit of a cast shadow there as well. Cast shadows on these sections that are behind. Okay, so you can see that hair now, we've broken that down into a lot of little pieces. So instead of just being one big mass, we've got all these individual sections. Coming into the top, we can do the same thing. Just coming around the rose a little bit there. Around the horn is sitting in front. Got a few sections that are behind over here. And just looking at that outline to help you break it down. Alright, now once you've done that, we can go ahead and get ready to add color. Now when you're working with a rainbow technique, so it's a little bit different than just standard hair. So the thing that we've got to keep in mind is we've got transition between the colors. So it's a little trickier than just picking up one color blend and then just going and adding in all the strokes, because we have to think about placement of color, where those transitions are going to be. So a good little tip on how to do this is I want you to grab the lightest color from each blend, and we're going to map in these areas first. So I've got Deco Pink. Now I want you to keep your pressure super light because this is a guide. This is not about adding in any color. I'm adding Deco Pink just down from the top here. Just bringing this straight down from the top. Really, really soft. Now, I am going to touch a little bit on light source. This is all the tricky stuff at the start. So if you're new to all technique, don't worry. This part's probably a little bit overwhelming, everything we're doing so far. And that's totally normal because we're learning a lot of new things. So I'm just really quickly going to touch on the technique to do with light source. Now, basically, when we color with hair, a really good rule of thumb is the areas that are popping out away from the face, so areas like this big bump over here, I like to call them the mountains. They're popping out. Now, you imagine your light coming down. We've got that big cone of light. It hits the areas that are popping out first. So those areas the whole way through that section are lighter. They are highlights. Areas that are curving back in toward the face, they get hit by these light rays last. So first and then last. So these areas, I call them valleys, and they're darker. They are shadow areas. So we're going to keep that in mind as we're doing our shading here today. So as I'm doing the pink, you can see I've come down and added the pink in what would be the valley area. So it's curving back up and away from the light there. And then I can use this pink again to fill in some of those valley areas on the other side of that mountain that's popping out. Now, when we work with rainbow hair, it's not as easy to keep highlight, midtone, and shadow because we're thinking about transition of the colors, and we need to go through the colors and think about them rather than think about that light source so much. So if you get your light source a little bit lost, I want you not to worry too much. It's still going to look beautiful at the end when you add in all of your colors like this. So don't worry too much about that, but it's good to always think about. Next color that I'm going to use is lavender. So I'm going to bring my lavender straight over where the Deco Pink is ending. And I'm actually overlapping the colors here. Overlapping the colors is how we get the transitions smooth. Remember, keep your pressure really nice and soft because this is just our base color. This is just helping us for where to add the placement of every color. You can see I'm leaving a little gap here for the highlight to pop through those middle areas before I'm going to switch into the next color. Next color is going to be non-photo blue. So I'm bringing into the blue. So purple to blue here. I'm going over where that purple is ended. Keep that pressure really nice and soft. Think about those highlights, midtones and shadows, the mountains and the valleys where you can. Alrighty, getting ready to swap into the next color, and then I've got my light green. And bring this forward, leave a gap for your highlight, and bring it in the other direction. So valley area here, highlight is the area that pops out, so always keep that in mind. So coming through the valley and then getting ready to pop out there. You can even leave a little gap. That's quite a large area there, so I left my little gap and I added the green on the other side. Then I'm going to bring in lemon yellow, and I'm going to add this from the bottom and overlap with that light green. Okay, so you can see there what we've achieved already is we've achieved the rainbow effect and we've broken down the hair into sections. So I've got the pink, the purple, blue, green and yellow, and we can clearly see where each one is going to be laid down. So that's our hard work all done. All we're going to do now is come in and add the texture and color straight over the top. Now I'm going to start in the pink area and I'm going to use the darkest color in the blend, which is going to be Processed Red. Now for this technique, what we're going to do is just take our time, work nice and slowly. I'm going to start firstly with a nice cast shadow, straight where we added that mapping in the first step, coming around the flowers. Nice and thick as well. Now we're going to do the strokes. Now when we do strokes in the hair, just coming to the top, we're just going to hold the pencil and nice and close to the nib for control there, that end point. Keep the pencil nice and sharp as well. And we're just going to place it down and then lift and flick. Flick that wrist. And you can see we're getting those strokes with the fine points on the end there. And we're just layering them up over and over. Now as we work, the key here is that we're going to leave a gap between the strokes so we can see the texture. So coming back down to the image here, and I'm starting at the top and extending strokes down. Now I'm extending them toward that highlight area that we mapped in the first step. Now what you will notice is I'm leaving a gap between the strokes and that each stroke is a different length. So I'm not trying to keep them all exactly the same length here. I'm trying to keep the strokes all different without thinking about it too much. And that's just going to break up the space and help it look a little bit more natural. Because we don't want to see all the strokes ending in a straight line. It's going to look quite harsh, like we've just got a block of the color ending. I'm going to leave my little gap there and I'm going to add just a few strokes coming up from the other side. We did add some pink there as well to show that earlier. Now I'm going to also add this color over that shadow, that cast shadow that we added. And remember the cast shadows are coming straight up, so the only time you're going to be bringing this darker color straight through is if you're going over a cast shadow area. So we want to make sure our strokes on either side aren't joining. Okay, now we're going to leave this part at the bottom, but we're going to come back through the top and work on our other colors. So the next color I'm going to use is Hot Pink, and I'm going straight over the top and extending just a little further out. Now in these initial steps here, you also want to come over the cast shadow, and you want to make sure it's not joining in the middle still. Now if you've got room to add in more strokes, if you left quite big gaps and you've got space, you can even create new strokes as well. I'm still making sure that the length of my strokes is all different so I get that really natural sort of look rather than a band where the color is just ending. In these first few layers, you'll notice as well that you still have quite a bit of tooth showing through the paper. The strokes aren't as crisp in the first few layers, because we've got a lot of room to really build the color up. I'm also going to bring this color back a little bit. I'm getting a little bit of banding here, so I'm bringing this color back just so these colors will end softly. So keep in mind these first few layers are not so much about detail, it's more about getting the strokes and texture down. And that's just because we've got a lot of tooth still to fill, we've got a lot of colors to come in with, and as we do our layers, that will start to slowly fill. Okay, next color that I'm going to use is Deco Pink. And I come straight over the top, and I'm extending a little further out. I'm not really joining the strokes doing whole lines through. I'm still flicking up from each side and then back in that other direction. but we are getting longer strokes because we are starting to come through that highlight area now. I'm still leaving a gap between each stroke, even though this color is a lot lighter. And that's going to help us get these tiny little strokes of white through here. And that's what's going to help the hair to look nice and shiny at the end. So try not to just color in the whole area. Still do those strokes that we've been working on. Now I'm going to leave that one there. I'm going to move into the purples now. And so I've got my Palmer Violet. And all I'm doing is I'm matching up these strokes with where I did the pink. And I'm overlapping where they join. And then extending a little further out. Now overlapping the color is crucial to get the soft transitions. And you can see here bringing this color through. We've got that cast shadow there as well that we want to work with. So make sure you don't forget those cast shadows. We can even come across and do them first. And you can see I am really making sure to bring this color up and overlap with the pinks as well. Now I find it easier to do these strokes away from myself too, so that may be something, moving your paper may really help you. I have to sit at a little bit of a funny angle so you can see everything that's happening in the video, but if I was doing this myself, I'd have my image all turned and flicking away to get those finer points on the end. Now as you're doing your coloring here today, I just wanted to run through a few little things and talk about mindful coloring. Now, if you're part of our Facebook community, you'll know we talk about this a lot. We always bring out little art therapy tips in our community, and it's important for us to think about that when we take a class as well. So mindfulness is when we just allow ourselves to be in the present moment and not worry about the past or the future, and just be really present with what you're doing right now. So I know it can be so hard for us to make time for ourselves when we have so much going on. And I want you just to really focus on what you're doing here today, the colors that are being laid down, the technique, the instructions. Just focus on that instead of letting your mind wander. And it's just going to help you just to de-stress and take this time for you fully. So no guilt for taking this time today. I want you just to accept that you've taken it. You've made yourself a priority, and it's such an important thing to do, especially if you're someone that spends a lot of time working or a lot of time caring for others. If we continue to give a lot and we don't give back to ourselves, it makes it really hard for us to keep giving. We get to a certain point, we've got nothing left. So taking time for you is not just important, but it is necessary. So I want you to take this here today. Really focus on just being present, de-stressing, feeling more balanced. You don't need to put aside lots and lots of time for coloring. So a lot of people think they need to sit down for, say, 2 or 3 hours, and if they don't, they're not doing a good job. 10 minutes or 15 minutes in a week or every 2 weeks is enough time for you to focus on yourself, to do something special for you, and to keep growing in your skills and your hobby that is important to you. You can get your own personal achievements. Sometimes it's not even about the coloring. It's about you focusing on yourself, taking that break, de-stressing, and doing something special to help you grow your skills. It helps you grow not just in coloring, but as you as a person as well, and that's why it's so important. So it's just something I want you to remind yourself of here today. Use this time to de-stress, to take pressure off. It's not about comparing, it's not about racing through technique, it's just about enjoying the process. Next color is going to be Lilac. And all we do is come straight over the top of that previous color and extend a little further in. Now you can see I'm also extending the strokes out toward the pink and then back toward the highlight too, helping us to get that nice smooth transition. We're really making sure to overlap colors. And this is our first layer of many too. So as we come back and we do the second layer of this color, it's going to look even different again. So this step's really important. And don't judge your coloring halfway through. I can't stress how important that is. Your coloring is going to look a little bit funny at this point because you haven't done much yet. We've just laid down some color on the page. We have no context. It's really important to finish a coloring, to see how it comes together, to understand how everything's working. At the moment, it's just color on the page. We don't have the unicorn colored, we can't really see the contours, and a lot of people can't actually see what a finished result's going to look like. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's important to trust yourself, to trust the process, and keep continuing on. It's going to look so much different as we finish. So I always see people say they started something and then they put it aside in frustration because they weren't getting it. This is actually the biggest hindrance to confidence. Completing a project helps you not only have the confidence that comes with an achievement, but it's what helps you to actually step back, look at your work objectively and think, well, how have I done here? What can I do differently for next time? How am I growing my technique? And we can't do that when it's half done. Next color is a little bit of lavender, and we're just doing the same thing. I'm just bringing this color through, and we're going to start bringing this through our highlight area now, still making sure that we leave gaps between the strokes. So it does look really messy at the moment, doesn't it? Mine does too. The good old joys of the starting steps with pencils. I think if you're a marker user especially, and we get a lot of people at Kit and Clatter who use markers and then are just getting into pencils, these sort of initial steps are really unnerving because with markers we're so used to really just seeing how it's going to look straight away, and with pencils it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look right until you've layered up, until you've really added more to the image. So we're getting there. All right, next color that we're going to use now is a little bit of Copenhagen blue. And I'm bringing this color is quite dark, so I'm not going to use a whole lot of this, but I'm using this as my shadow color and I'm transitioning through from the purple. Now, one other thing as well, when you're doing the technique here today, what you may find is your placement of colors might be slightly different to mine. So even my one here, I can see already that this one is quite different from my original sample. I've got more purple than my original one did. And that doesn't mean it's wrong. So I just wanted to point that out to you right now. If yours is different than mine, I don't want you to ever say, well, oh, I didn't have as much pink as Elise did in the video. That's totally okay. We all color a little bit differently. And naturally, everyone's work is going to look a little different. And remember again, we talked at the start of the video, your aim is not for your coloring to look like anyone else. You're trying new things, you're growing you here today, and you're going to grow on that even more every single time you practice. So if you're finding something tricky, it's good. It means that you're actually learning something here today. And that is exactly why we want to take a class, because we want to be pushed, we want to be challenged. If we're not doing those two things, we're not going to grow in our coloring. So embrace that challenge and tell yourself right now you're doing a great job because you're trying this new thing. You're going to get there in the end, and we're going to assess it, and we're going to help you keep growing with that as well. Non-photo blue next, and we come straight over the top and even up into that purple a little bit. Let's work on the transitions between the colors and then extend out a little bit further as well. And don't forget as well, when you learn something new, like with the video here today, we've gone through a lot of technique, and a lot of the technique like light source and color theory might be absolutely brand new to you. So it might be a little confusing today. You may find that when you finish watching the video again, techniques are going to sink in a little bit more. It's going to make a little bit more sense. That's totally normal as well. I don't want you to feel like you're not capable if this is how you're feeling right now, because we all feel like that. I feel like that when I'm learning new things as well, absolutely. So we're getting there now. You can see it's starting to come together. Next color is going to be my Parrot Green. And I'm going to match this up with some of the strokes. Now I've got another little highlight here that I've allowed for. So I'm just going to bring this one through. And then we'll come back on the other side as well. Cast shadow around here, so following that through. Leaving that gap and coming in on this other side now. And remember, we do both sides of the stroke so we get that nice point on the end. This one's a little bit of a funny shape, so I'm just not going to worry so much about a highlight there. I'm just going to extend those strokes a little bit further out. This one here we will do though, extend some strokes in from this side. And then come back, do the points on the ends. Cast shadow through here. Try not to bring your cast shadow through the very bottom. We do have the yellow that's going to go in there. It can be very easy to bring the green through that area by accident. And if you do, you do. It's okay, it's not ruined. Pick yourself up, keep going. Light green's going to be next. And bringing that through and extend further out. Every mistake you make is an opportunity to ask why and what can you do differently next time to help you get a different result. As soon as you take away the negative, you can start being constructive. So when you share your coloring after the lesson, and I really do hope a lot of you share with us. We've got Facebook, we've got Instagram. Come in and share with other people who are learning just like you. But when you do share, I want you to try and avoid saying, it's not perfect, or I wish I did this differently, or I don't like the hair, or I don't like this. I want you to remove any of those sort of phrases because they're not celebrating your steps. They're telling yourself that you actually did wrong. And instead, I want you to point out 2 things you feel you've done well. We always can look at something we've done well. And then I want you to look at one thing. You might just want to keep this personal as well rather than posting for everyone. But just think of if there's something that you're going, I really hate the hair. I want you to say, next time with the hair, I'm going to try this differently. And all of a sudden, you're helping yourself learn from this. Okay, after the yellow ochre, and I'm not using a lot of this because it's a darker color than I wanted the yellow to be, but I still need to use a darker color, otherwise I don't get the depth. So I've just kept this nice and minimal and just at the bottom of these sections. Okay, then I've got my lemon yellow and we're going to bring that up and through. And I like to bring this through a little bit at the bottom of that green as well. Okay, rainbow, step 1, done. You can see we've got those beautiful transitions through the colors. We're starting to look at light source and we do have a lot of texture. What we need to work on is it's a little bit messy at the moment. It's messy and it's not as defined. So what we do is we want to grab a really nice sharp white pencil and we're going to transform what we've just colored here, flattening everything down and smoothing out those transitions. Okay, so with my white pencil, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually color between the strokes. And what that's going to do is it's going to flatten out the tooth, and it's going to help my strokes look a lot cleaner because I'm getting rid of a lot of those fuzzy little outlines. So take your time with this step. We want to take our time, make sure that we're always working between the strokes. If you work on top of the strokes, what's going to happen is the white's going to tint the color. And tinting is when we use either white or black, or we change the value of the color. And value is how light or dark a color is. So you can imagine if I'm adding white over the darker pinks, it's going to look a lot lighter and more pastel. So we want to try and avoid coloring over the top of those darker lines, but we are going to come back anyway after this step and deepen it up again with our color. So if you do, it's okay here, but we want to try and avoid it, get some good practice in with control over the pencil. Now, a good thing with these steps, if your strokes are close together in some areas, what you can do is get the pencil and go back and forth, and you can brighten up the area between strokes by pushing the pigment a little. So that's a really good step if you've been quite close with some of those strokes there. So you can see how much more defined that little section looks now. I'm going to try and zoom in just a little bit for us here. There we go. So that's looking a whole lot more defined. Bringing the pencil through, and you can see just flattening the tooth as you go, and it's helping to blend, helping to define the areas. Now, every so often you'll notice that I actually twist my pencil. I do it really fast, and that's because what I'm doing is I'm trying to always work on the sharpest side of the pencil as I color, especially when doing line work like this. So I sharpen my pencil up and give it a few twists either side, and when it's just feeling like it's really quite flat and I'm really not getting control anymore over my lines, then I give it just a really quick turn in the sharpener just to bring that point back up. So always working with a sharp pencil will help you have control. If you find that your lines are lacking a little bit of control and they're quite thick, you may be using a blunt pencil, or you may have a little bit too much pressure. So you should never be holding and using the pencil so much that your hand hurts. If this is the case, you're probably using way too much pressure, and you want to slow it down and allow yourself to build up with more layers than you are currently. So just relax that grip. If your hand does hurt, and yes, you're really feeling like you are using too much pressure, it's just something you need to try and be a little bit conscious of. You can try setting up an alarm, so at regular intervals, say on your phone, an alarm goes off and you just remind yourself to check how you're holding the pencil. Using the pencil further back allows you to put less pressure on, but allows you to get less detail, so it's something that you may have to compromise on as well. Okay, so that's after the white step. So you can see it's really transformed the hair. We definitely have that really pretty soft pastel look now because we have tinted the color down a lot. We lost a little bit of the vibrancy, but it's made it that beautiful pastel tone. We flattened a lot of the tooth down, which is great. But we don't have a huge amount of detail, and some of the detail that we do have is a little bit washed out from applying that white over the top. So what we want to do here now is just repeat everything that we've already done. We're going to build up that color again so we can really get the detail in, we can amp up the color a little bit more, and we can focus on that line work. So what I want you to do in this step is I want you to sharpen up all those pencils. Make sure you're always working on your sharp points, and we're literally just going to repeat everything again. So grabbing my Process Red, I'm starting in the shadow color right at the top, and you can also bring this color straight through your cast shadows. Remember, overlap with some of those purples as well. It's just going to help the transitions look nice and soft. And then we're going to come through and we're going to work on these strokes. And you're just basically laying them right where you did the first time around. If you've got space between and you feel like there's a really big gap between your strokes, you can absolutely come in and add new strokes as well. Because we've got a lot of pigment on the page right now, the paper is a lot flatter. So it's easier to do techniques like hair when you do have that smoother surface from the flattened tooth. Texture is always a little bit easier on flattened paper. As you can see, we're just focusing on the line work. And because we did all that depth in the last step, we added all the colors already, it's really helping this step to be nice and strong and vibrant. Bringing in a touch of this color as well on the other side, overlapping with some of those purple strokes. Next color is going to be Hot Pink. And we just come straight over the top and extend through a little bit further. Bringing a little bit of this pink back into that purple area, it's just going to help soften where the pink's ending. So the pink isn't just ending in a straight line, it's extending through it, getting those soft transitions through the colors there. And then Deco Pink, bring this color up as well. Okay, next color we're going to come into those purples, and it's Palmer Violet. Take your time and try not to rush a step. Work on those sharp points, focus on your line work, be in the moment here and really focus on that technique. Nice and slow. Lilac is next. overlapping with some of that pink, get those transitions nice and soft. Notice how we're getting a little bit of movement happening here. Playing with those highlights, we've got those lighter sections that we left right at the start. If you don't have them, that's okay, something to work on for next time. That's the trickiest part of doing rainbow hair, is still keeping a little bit of a highlight. Usually the highlights get a little bit consumed by the color change. And that's okay either way as well. Still going to give you a really pretty effect at the end. A little bit of the Palmer Violet off at the bottom, so I'm just coming back with Palmer Violet to do this section. Lavender, bringing this colour through. I'm even bring a little bit of my white back through this area here. We lost a little bit of the highlight here. So what I can actually do is use my white pencil, and you can see I can sort of push the pigment around here and brighten up an area through. Blues are next. Copenhagen blue here. Not a lot of this colour, just a little bit. Non-photo blue. Parrot Green now. Light green. Yellow ochre. And then lemon yellow. Now after this step, you may wish to come in with a sharp white pencil again and just come through any areas that may have got a little bit muddy, that you still have tooth showing through. And you can just clean everything up. Try and keep the pencil sharp and keep it only between the strokes, and that will just help you really focus on the detail only here. Any areas where you feel like you've lost your strokes, don't forget you can come back and forth with the white, and you can brighten up particular areas. You can alternate back with your colors too, so if you need to lighten an area, just come over with the white, and then you can come back with one of your pencils, add in some more strokes. So you basically just keep working the areas until you're happy with the finished result. And that is the rainbow effect of the hair all done. So a lot of techniques there just in that one element. We've looked at light source, we've looked at color depth in theory, and we've looked at creating that rainbow technique, transitioning through the colors there. So lots of little things. Now keep in mind at the moment, no judging. We're going to finish off the rest of the mane and then we'll look at holding it back and assessing. So let's continue on. We'll just do the top of the head next. And I'm just going to keep it simple just by doing the pink blend. So I'm going to start with my process red. So come up to the top. Process red, firstly add in your car shadows right where you map them in the very first step. And then you can do your strokes. So remember all different lengths extending toward the mountain areas. Mountains being the areas that pop away from the face, so this area here. So you start in the valley where it's curving in toward the face and extend out toward the mountain where it's curving away. All different length strokes and bring them around. Next color, hot pink. Actually, I've just forgotten a little bit at the front, so I'm just going to add that in now. Okay, now my hot pink. And we go over the top and extend a little bit further out. Then a little bit of Deco Pink. Now we bring our white pencil through. So remember the white comes between the strokes here. Okay, then once you've done that, we're going to repeat everything again. So sharpen up those pencils and then we'll come straight over the top. So process red. Hot pink is next. A little bit of Deco Pink. And then you can bring your white through. And that is your mane all done. So I'm just going to zoom out now so you can see we've achieved lots of texture, lots of light source, and lots of beautiful color variation here. Now this technique can be applied on absolutely any image. So remember again, we talked about earlier, this practice is probably the hardest one you're going to do because it's the first one. So now we want to grab your favorite images out, have another practice, let those techniques sink in. Now before looking at your work today, it's important to change your perspective. At the moment, we're in up close mode. We've been coloring so close up, focusing so much on detail, when that's not necessarily how we actually view our project. So we need to move out of that up close mode. What we want to do now is make sure that we step back and view with distance. So right now I want you to shake your hands out, give your head and neck a good stretch, maybe get up and do a lap around the room as well, just to loosen up a little bit and changes our mind frame and perspective. Now when you come back down to sit, hold your colouring out at arm's length. So give yourself a little bit of distance because no one looks at the colouring and scrutinises it up close for mistakes. Hold it back and actually view your colouring and see how it's coming together. Instead of looking at little areas you don't love, try and look at the piece overall. But remember as well that we don't yet have context. It's always going to look a little bit funny and a little bit incomplete when you haven't finished your colouring. And right now we've got all this beautiful rainbow hair, but we don't have the face done. And the face looks a little bit funny without any contours or anything there done. So try not to judge too harshly. It's important for us to keep going and we'll see how this comes together. Now, if you're sitting there though and you're feeling like you've made a big mess or it's not really coming together how you'd like, I don't want you to put this colouring aside. Right now, the most important thing for you to do is to take a quick photo and pop it through on either email to myself, elise@kitandclouder.com, or pop it through on Facebook private messenger. Let's chat together, let's work one-on-one on some quick tips to help you feel a bit more confident with that result. You've got nothing to be nervous of here. I've made every mistake possible, but a quick 2-minute chat can really help you feel a lot more confident with those next steps. Alrighty, so I'll see you in the next part of the tutorial as we get ready to colour up the unicorn space. Welcome to the markers portion of chapter 1, where we're going to be colouring up the mane of the unicorn. Now I've coloured this one up in markers here so you can see how the exact same techniques transfer to this medium as well. So still all the same texture in the hair, and we've still got that beautiful transition through the colours. Now to colour up the hair, instead of doing a basic marker blending method, we're going to use the flicking technique. Now if you'd like to learn a little bit more about flicking and the other types of blending methods, if you pop onto our website at kitandclouder.com and click the Classrooms tab, there's a totally free class called Markers 101. Now this class goes through all the different blending strokes, how to do light source, how to create your own color blends and everything like that. And that's absolutely free. So if you feel like you're in those beginner stages and would like some extra tips on how to do particular strokes, then absolutely please check out this video as we break everything right down to those very, very, very basics. But we will run through a little bit of that today. So I'm just going to pop this on the side. Before we get started, let's just go through some basic flicking strokes. So I recommend just to use a scrap piece of your blending card or just have a sheet of it that you can just use as flicking practice. I used to do this a lot when I was starting out. So when we do flicks, what we do is we grab the marker and we hold it nice and close to the end here for control. Now I hold the marker and rest it on my second last finger. A lot of people have said this has really helped them with their flicking. So if you feel like you're struggling with being a little bit heavy-handed, this may be something that you'd like to look at as well. The reason why is when I rest it on the second last finger, as opposed to on the last finger, what happens is the marker is up from the tabletop 2 fingers height. So when I go to place the marker down, I have the control to just really lightly touch to the page. However, if you're resting it on the last finger here, you can see when I go to touch to the page, I'm already so close. So there's a little danger of pressing a little bit too hard. So that may help you just to look at and may feel uncomfortable at the start, but just have a little practice. Try again a page of just the flicking and see if that helps at all. Now when we do the technique, the idea is we're going to work on point rather than on the side like how we would blend. So we're working straight vertically, holding that marker vertically, and we're going to be flicking. We're going to come along the page and lift up. So it's just along and lift, along and lift, and over and over and over. We want to make sure we're holding the marker nice and soft. Now, if you're really pushing the marker and taking your time, you may be doing little strokes like this. This happens when we go too slowly and we push the marker down. What's better off is if you speed yourself up, hold the marker super, super light. There's no pressure here. And I'm just really lightly just pulling along the page. I can sort of just pull my hand back and forth. And as I lower it to the paper, it's making these strokes. So try and loosen up a bit and just do a page of practices. If you're getting these short ones, loosen up and try and go long. It's going to help you get those more fluid looking strokes. Now when I do hair, I like to actually move my page around. I find it's easier to curve strokes away from yourself. As you're sort of going around corners, you may find it easier to do straight ones towards you, but it's a good idea to practice getting in the habit of going away because of those curves. And you may find that just turning your page around as you work will really help because you can have it say upside down and be flicking around like this. Now just one more thing. Now the key when we do hair, with the strokes, we want to separate them. So the idea is that we have our strokes, we do the hair just like this. Then we come in with the next color, and I'm just using the same one just for this demonstration, but we start to fill the gaps in. And then when you're using all the different colors, you get that variation and the levels. Now what we want to try and avoid is when we have the strokes really close together like this, because you can imagine what's going to happen when I layer up strokes like that. It just looks blended, and then we actually lose the texture. So the key here is to separate those strokes, and a good way to think about it is with your hand. We don't want this, we want this. Leave the gaps between, and as we come in with the colors, we start to fill the gaps in. Okay, let's get ready to start doing some coloring. Now remember at the start of the video tutorial, we talked about when something is sitting in front or above, it's casting that shadow back on the object below or behind, and it's showing the distance. So the first thing that we want to do is add in those cast shadows. Now, if I just bring back my actual coloring, the problem is here, if I went to go and add in a cast shadow, so say for example, we've got some cast shadows that run the whole way through, I'd need to be using pink, then purple, then blue, then green, then yellow, just to map in the cast shadows. So what I'm going to do, instead of doing that, I'm going to go ahead and use a light grey color. And that way I can use this as shadow mapping. I can add this all over, and by the time I come in with my brighter colors, you won't even see the step. And that way I can keep the one color throughout all of the hair. Now you can use any gray you like for this. I'm going to be using C0, really nice and light. I'd recommend using a 0 or a 1 marker. Okay, so we've got our unicorn here. Let's add in our cast shadows first. Now we can see that the flowers are sitting in front of the mane. So we're going to go ahead, nice big thick cast shadows straight around. Now we want to keep the cast shadows nice and thick, which will help the flowers to look like they're popping off the surface there. Same on the other side. Now we want to go ahead and add in cast shadows in the hair. Now we want to stop looking at hair as one object. We want to think about all of these individual elements that make up the hair, the individual sections. Each individual section, once we break them down, has its own highlight, midtone, and shadow. So that's how you can easily approach the hair to give it a lot more dimension. Now the way we do that is we come down and look at the outline of the hair. So I'm following straight down this outline. When I get to this point here, I can see the lines intersect. And I can see this line runs through and then it stops. This line comes around and in front of it. Now remember, when something's in front, it casts a shadow back. So this makes it look like this part here is sitting in front of this part to the left. So the part that's behind gets a shadow on it. So I come around that part in front, and then I'm going to extend this straight up. Now I'm extending it further than the artist did because I want to connect it with this section up top. And now all of a sudden I've made that whole part one section. It makes the hair a whole lot easier to tackle because instead of just one big lump, we now have just one little section. And then we can go ahead and break down the rest of the hair into these little sections as well. So we just continue along the outline. I get to here, there's an intersection. This line comes in front. So this section here is in front of this one over here. So cast shadow on the section behind and follow that up. There's another line here as well we can use to create another section. And you might want to join that to the top. Got a section at the back here as well. Now when you work with things like light source, if you're brand new to coloring, theories like this can feel overwhelming, and that's totally normal. Now the reason why it feels overwhelming is because it's new. It's something that you don't yet have that practice and experience in. But as you practice, it becomes more familiar and it starts to make more sense. So don't worry if today you feel a little bit overwhelmed. It's normal and expected. Keep going with it, and you may not see it today, you may not see cast shadows and fully understand them. The more classes you do, the more practice you have, the more it will start to make sense. Now I get to this part here, I'm going to add a little bit of a cast shadow. Now this part's really quite large, and what I'm going to do here is make some of my own sections. So what I'm going to do is bring a line straight up. And you can see I'm just creating my own little sections there. I wanted to show you how you can add your creative license and start to create your own detail. You're not always stuck with just what the artist has drawn in. Okay. That's that back area done, and we've just got a little bit in the front, so again we've come around the rose, come around the horn now as well. Few sections back here. Alright, so we've broken the hair down now. Now we're going to work in that rainbow sense. But it's a little bit tricky because we have to think of where each color is going to go. So instead of just jumping in, we can use a little tip to make breaking it down easier. And that's to use the absolute lightest color in each blend, and we can map in where we want each color to go. Now before I do that, I'm just going to run through a really basic hair coloring technique. Now when we work with light source, we imagine the rays of light coming down and hitting the image. Now where we have the areas that are curving away from the face, so notice this part here, I like to call this a mountain. It's curving out and away from the face. Light comes down, it hits all of the mountain areas first, and it hits these areas curving in towards the face, we call them the valleys, it hits those ones second. So you can see here I'm hitting this one and then we'd hit this one afterwards because it's further away. So mountains end up being highlights and a lighter, valleys, shadows, and a darker. So when we add our color, we add color to the valleys, the shadow areas, and curve in toward the highlights. So what I'm going to do here is I've got RV00, really light pink. I'm going to trace around the cast shadow here. And then all I'm going to do is I'm adding in some color to this section. And you can see all I'm doing is bringing some strokes out toward the highlight area, so that part that's bumping out. Then I'm going to come back and I'm adding in some strokes from the other side. Now this color is really light. I'm only using this color as a map at this point. It's just going to really easily help me see where the colors are going to go. Then I can move into my purple color. Now I'm going to use BV000 here. And I'm just going to bring this, you can bring it along the car shadows too. And then just adding a little bit of color where I want those purples to be. A little bit of car shadow here. And I'm overlapping with the pink where the colors meet. So don't worry too much about the step looking pretty. This is just a guide to help us see where the colors are going to go. B00 is next, and we continue to extend that around. And bring a little bit of this into the valley area here. Don't forget cast shadows as well. Okay, ready to come into the next color. It's a little bit of G00 now, adding in some of the greens. And overlap with some of the blues. So it's just starting to see where those colors are going to be laid. Just a visual representation for us. Totally missed this bottom area, so I'm just going to grab my purples first. Then the blue. And then a little bit of green coming up from this side. And then I'm just going to move into a touch of Y11. So this step is purely just to show color. Helps us to understand what we're going to do at these later steps. Not meant to be neat, it's just meant to show a little bit of color on the page. And you can see we've got the basic idea of the rainbow there. Now let's go ahead and add in our strokes. So now I'm going to start with my darkest color in the pink blend at the top. That's RB09. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to come around the cast shadow, just like we did in the first step. And we know exactly where we're going to place this color because we just did the shadow map. But first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop in and do my cast shadow through the pink area. Any cast shadow. So we had this one as well that came down. And it's okay if they overlap and come a little bit into the other areas. And there's one over here. And a few of these smaller ones. Okay, now we're going to add our strokes. So starting from the top, remember that flicking stroke. If you want to practice again, grab the paper out and practice. And I'm just extending them straight from that belly area toward the highlight. Now remember, what's important here is to leave a gap between the strokes. So I'm spacing them out. And you'll notice as well my strokes are all different lengths and different thicknesses. Different lengths stops the color from looking like it all ends in a straight line. It's going to help it look a lot more fluid and natural. Now I have to work on a little bit of a funny angle when I do the video so you can see what's happening with my fingers. So my strokes here are a lot bigger than my original colouring. And a little bit messier because it's a little bit harder to curve towards me. I don't have as much practice with that. But the good thing about this is it's going to help you see, even if your strokes are thicker than what mine look like in an example, it doesn't mean you're doing a bad job. So many times I see people so focused on getting fine lines instead of actually focusing on that technique. Whereas if you've got thicker lines but your technique is there, it's actually going to look still really good at the end. Next color I'm going to come in with RV04. And I'm just doing the same thing. I'm just coming through and extending a little bit further. Now with this color, you don't need to place it directly on the lines that you made previously. Just follow the shapes around. If you end up making a few new lines, that's absolutely okay. There's no right or wrong for that. Okay, with this color, I'm now also going to bring a little bit from this other direction like we did before. So I'm just starting some strokes through. You can see I'm just starting the lines there. They look a little hard though. So what we do is once we do that, we come back in this other direction. I'm going to turn my image a little bit, make it a little bit easier for me. And I can come back and I do my strokes the other way and it will just give them that softer little edge. Don't worry too much if it's a little bit messy. We'll keep going through. It's totally going to look different at the end for you. Next color is RV02 and we come straight over the top and again extend that a little bit further in. Also bring this color out the other way so you're softening these strokes down. Okay, next color is RV000 and the same thing, extending the strokes through. But I'm not just blending over the whole area. I'm still starting in each shadow and blending in toward the highlight. What that's going to do for us is it's going to leave some tiny little slithers of white. And that'll help you get a little bit of variation. It's not about leaving white space. So if you've heard this technique before and say you struggle with white, we're not trying to leave white. We're just trying to space everything out, which is naturally just going to create tiny little slithers of areas that hasn't seen much pigment yet. Okay, so just for that little area, you can see if we cut out everything else, pretend like that's not there, we've got shadow, shadow, and the highlight through the middle where it's a little bit lighter. So we've incorporated light source and color theory here to create this. It looks a little bit funny here, but now we're going to move into our purples and we're going to work on the transition. Now with this color, I've got BV13. And I'm going to bring this in my car shadow here. So I'm just going to bring this a little bit further down. And you can overlap with some of the pink lines as well. Overlapping is how we get the transitions to look smooth. I am going to move mine a little bit. I hope this is okay. I really recommend for you to try this as well. See, it's so much different. And then we're just working through adding in our strokes. Try and work quickly. If you struggle with fine lines, speed yourself up a little bit. I find this really helps us just loosen up and just not think it through so much. Usually when we're worried about it and we're really thinking of all these different things, that's when we actually are not as happy because the strokes become forced rather than fluid. A few more strokes down the bottom here. Eyeshadow. Okay, next color that I'm going to use with that blend is my V15. And all you're doing is just following through, extending strokes out. You'll notice these purples are overlapping with some of those pinks like we talked about before. It's going to help it look a whole lot softer. So much better to overlap than just to start a color where another has stopped. Now, as you're doing your coloring here today, I just wanted to talk about mindful coloring. Now, if you're part of our Facebook community, you'll know we talk about this a lot. We always bring out little art therapy tips in our community, and it's important for us to think about that when we take a class as well. So mindfulness is when we just allow ourselves to be in the present moment and not worry about the past or the future, and just be really present with what you're doing right now. So I know it can be so hard for us to make time for ourselves when we have so much going on. Next color is V12. And I want you just to really focus on what you're doing here today, the colors that are being laid down, instead of letting your mind wander. And it's just going to help you just to de-stress and take this time for you fully. So no guilt for taking this time today. I want you just to accept that you've taken it, you've made yourself a priority, and it's such an important thing to do. If we continue to give a lot and we don't give back to ourselves, it makes it really hard for us to keep giving. We get to a certain point, we've got nothing left. So taking time for you is not just important, but it is necessary. Alright, next color in the blend, we're coming into our blue. So I'm going to use B02 next. Firstly, you can go through, match up your cast shadows. Let's work on those. Overlap with the purple. Get those transitions nice and soft. And then you're just extending your strokes through. Use those maps that you did earlier so you know how far to bring the colors and still leave enough for the last two blends. Some strokes may line up, some strokes may be totally new. So just follow the shapes around, curve the hair as the shapes curve for the smoothest finish. Also going to add a little bit of blue in some of the areas that are on the other sides. Just going to turn my page a little bit to do this part. I'm going to leave that there and I'll come in with my greens next. So GO2 is the next color, and let's just continue that down toward the bottom. And see I'm doing my cast shadows here. overlap with where the blue has ended. And now we can do some shadows on these as well. And then work on the shadow areas. Now again, remember, if it's a little messy, it's okay. Also, if your light source is a little off in some areas, don't worry too much about it as well. It's really hard with rainbow hair to keep your light source totally in place everywhere because we're so focused on the transition between the colors. G00 is next. You can see bringing that through, overlapping that with some of the strokes as well. Combining the blue and the green together. Alrighty, and then the last color here is the yellows. So I'm going to start with just a touch of Y21. Not a lot, but just doing a few little strokes at the bottom. I don't want to darken it too much because it's got a really pretty soft pastel quality at the moment. So I'm trying to keep that sort of look. And then just grab your Y11, and then we can extend the strokes of this up and through some of that green. Okay, that's layer 1 done. Now after layer 1, we've got the color transitions there. So we've got the beautiful bright colors, and we can start to see that they are transitioning nicely. But after layer 1, I usually find that my colors are not so rich. The color has been desaturated a little by all the different layers. So to combat this, I find repeating the previous steps will help us really focus on detail a lot more and help us achieve even more of a brighter and more refined look. So I literally just grab the darkest color again, that was the RV09, and I start right back in step 1. Now if you want to turn your page, you can. I'm just going to go ahead and add the color here. It's literally just going over exactly where you did it. Now again, though, if you add some new strokes or some aren't quite on top, that's absolutely okay. Especially if you've added some big gaps between, you may feel like with this step you want to come back and slightly fill. Remember though, we still need to keep the gaps between for texture, otherwise they get lost. Don't forget to also come around car shadows. and then work your way back through. So RV04 is next, and I'm just bringing these strokes straight through. RV02. And just notice how much richer this part now is just by bringing those colors through again. It really makes all the difference. And then RV00. Next lot of colors coming with my purples, and it's BB13. Overlap the colors. A little bit of B15. Again, overlapping, you can see, not hesitating to bring this up a little bit into where that pink was. Just helps the transitions look seamless. And then a little bit of V12. Now BO2. Now what I'm noticing in my colouring here is that this one for me has turned out a lot darker than my original one. Doesn't mean it's wrong in any way, it just means I've probably added some heavier layers this time around. So just remember, when you are looking at your work at the end, there's always a tendency to compare with the class sample. You may see someone else's that you like. Try not to compare. It's such a vital lesson to learn. We all color a little bit differently, and we all have different amounts of practice. And what you may like in a technique may be totally different as well. And don't forget, when you're learning, because this was a new technique for a lot of you here today, typically with a new technique, your first go is going to be the worst because you don't yet have that practice and that refinement behind you. So it's totally normal to feel a little bit unsure at this point. But just remember, it's not about what that end result looks like. It's about the fact that you're trying, you're giving yourself a chance, and you're growing every single time you pick up your markers here today. B00 now. G02. G00. And then bring in those yellows. So it's a touch of Y21. It's just soft. We don't want the yellow to be too rich. Now this part here is going to look more normal when we come in and do the shading around the unicorn as well. And then your Y11. Okay, almost done. So that's the colored part there of the mane all done. Let's come and do the top, and I'm going to do that in the same pink blend as earlier. So I'm just going to start with RV09. Cast shadows first. Straight around, nice and thick. And you can come and do the cast shadows all around here. And then add in your strokes. Remember, different lengths. Now this area is smaller than the area you were working before, so you're going to have to scale those strokes accordingly. Keep them nice and short, but focus on the different lengths, get that variation happening. And remember, leave a gap between the strokes. Alright, next colour, RV04. Oops, and I totally missed that little one at the front. I'm just going to add that in. I'm really struggling with the angle that I'm sitting on tonight. My chair must have moved a little bit from normal, but I kind of like showing you two different ones anyway. And I always speed myself up a little bit for the video too, just because I don't think you probably want to watch me colouring for 12 hours, but my original one I usually take a lot of care in. And it does show that if you do take your time and you don't rush yourself, you can really achieve a lot more detail too. So when you sit down, try and just be in that moment and take the time for you, and don't put yourself on any time pressure. Just do what you can get done in the time you've allotted yourself for today. RV02. Instead of trying to finish it all in one go. There's nothing wrong with taking your time and being a little slower than others. We all have different things on in the background. RV00 here, just bringing that through. Again, leaving a gap between. Now you may find after that one whole layer that you need a little bit of extra depth. So I do like to bring this color back in. I'm repeating my previous steps, starting with RV09. RV04. RV02. And RV00. And that is the mane all done. I'll zoom out a little bit. Okay, so again, we've gone through a lot of techniques here today, and techniques that can be applied to all different images, not just the unicorn here. So make sure when you finish this one up today that you do practice on another image and look at refining the techniques so you are really learning. Go back over the video, listen to the techniques again and those fundamentals and implement them. Now it's really important at this part that we're really careful with how we look at our work. There's a tendency to judge our work and feel like it's not right after one step, but it's important to remember that we don't have any context yet. We haven't done the face. The face always looks a little bit funny uncolored because we don't have the detail there around the hair. All we really have at the moment is just color on the page, that rainbow color. So what we want to do now is a really good thing is to stretch out your hands, do some finger exercises, some hand exercises, maybe do a lap around the room, reset yourself. We've been working in up-close mode, looking at all the little detail and all the little strokes for so long that we tend to lose a little bit of perspective because we never really look at anyone's artwork right up close within, say, 20 centimeters or anything. We usually actually step back from them. So when you actually come to your image, hold it out at arm's length and just appreciate the whole thing. See how the whole thing is coming together. Now, when you're looking at your work, make sure as well that you don't use any negative because every coloring we're doing is a learning opportunity. So if you say, oh, I don't think I did a good job with the hair, that's negative. Instead, let's say next time I'm going to try, say, separating the strokes a little bit more. I'm going to try the transitions a little bit more to help me get a better result. All of a sudden you've taken an area you're not quite sure about and you've made it constructive. So you're learning, you're taking something away from it, and you're recognizing that this here is just a practice today. If you feel like you're totally lost and you're not quite getting it, don't put it aside. This is your most important step right now. Take a photo, pop it through either on Facebook private messenger to myself or email elise@kitandclouder.com, and let's spend a couple minutes together, or as long as you need, to go over the techniques to help you feel confident taking that next step. It may just be a quick conversation, but it will help you to actually assess the image and look at how you can tweak things a little bit more to feel happier with your result. Don't ever feel nervous doing this. I've made absolutely every mistake possible, so we can work together to help you take that next step. Alrighty, so done with the main. We're going to move on to the next part of the video where we're going to color up the unicorn's face. Welcome to chapter 2 of the video tutorial, and in this chapter we're going to go ahead and color the unicorn's face. Now before we get to coloring, I'm going to break down a little bit of the technique first for both mediums. Now you can see that the unicorn that we're coloring, we're trying to emulate that the unicorn is white. However, when coloring white things, we still need to show contouring, we need to show shadows and all the different elements to show that it still has depth. We want to show the muscles, the contours of the face. So to do this, we need to actually use color. So we bring in grays to show shadowing on whites. That's because, for example, if I just put this over my hand here, notice that the shadow on my hand is a lot darker than my actual hand color. So we need to make sure that we actually are communicating this to show that we have depth between objects. If it was just the same color all over, so if we just left this as white, we wouldn't be able to see the different levels and areas that are popping out toward us versus areas that are further back. Now I have actually used quite a bit of color on the horse even though we want it to be white, and that's because horses generally have a lot of contouring in the facial area. So they've got really nice long and flat noses here, but the result of that is when you've got the area that's raised up, then on the sides it goes into the slope down. So we have the sharp slope down, which is communicated over here. So to show that slope, we need to use darker colors on the side that's angling away from the light. Around the nostrils as well, quite dark here to show that these areas are raised up, but then hollowed out inside as well. We've got the darker area, that cavity there where the shadow is happening. Contouring around the face and the eye area, so a lot of contouring here. Now, the way we know how to do this is you can use reference photos, so popping onto Google and just seeing the contours and the shapes of the face. A lot of horses are slightly different as well, especially if you're looking at different patterns and different colors rather than just the white like this. But Google can be a really huge help if you're not sure how to approach with more complex animals like this. You'll notice that we've got strong cast shadows around the hair area, the hair sitting in front, so casting a shadow back, coming into the neck. So we've got the head sort of sitting on top like this on the angle here, and notice the shape of the shadow on this hand. It comes down in that angle across, and that's because the head is sort of leaning over the neck area. So when we come to the shadows here in this area, notice that we've got that same thing. We've got the darker shadow on the side, and it's almost got that cross, that triangular sort of shape there, showing how the head is sitting on that angle. Around the eyes, we've got darker areas here. Now, everywhere that you color as dark is going to show an area that's sitting further back. So these darker pockets here are indicating almost areas that are curving down and away from the light there. Lighter areas like these areas here are popping out toward us, so are a lot lighter and brighter, getting hit by the light first. Coming down now into the contours of the body, it's the same thing. So we've got the shoulders here as he starts to sort of curve away from the light. This shoulder here sort of slanting back and behind this area, so it's a lot darker as well. Now in the mouth area, you'll notice this is quite dark, and that's just the patterning of the horse. So a lot of white horses have really dark areas around the mouth. And then I've also brought a little bit of dark area into the ears as well. So let's get colouring, and a lot of this will make a lot more sense. But today I'm just going to show you how we would basically do the contouring to show all the muscles and feature in the face of the unicorn or a horse. And again, using reference images in the future is a really great way to tackle more complex images like this as well. Now in the first part of the video we'll do pencils, and then we'll follow that up with our markers. Okay, ready to go with my pencils. Now, the area that I actually want to start with is the eyes, because at the moment they look a little bit funny. But you can notice when we add color, and let's put them side by side, when we add color, look how much more depth it really adds, and it creates that emotion in the eye as well. Now, this is going to be a really quick and simple way to color eyes, and can be applied to any image at all as well. I'm going to start firstly with my black. And what we're going to do is we're going to come along the top, and we're just going to lower the eye. So what I mean by that is we add a little bit of shading from the very top here and bringing it over. Now when you hit this side, I'm actually going to draw a little shape around. That's going to be a highlight. So I'm just going to make sure I don't add color in there. And I've added black all across the top. Now notice what that's done is it helps to lower the gaze down a little bit. I'm also bringing this color just along the bottom edge there. Now I'm going to pop into some browns. I'm going to use my sienna brown, and I'm coming straight over the top of where that black's ended and adding a little bit of color toward the pupil there. And then what I'm going to do is from that pupil, I'm going to add just tiny little strokes out. Now if you struggle with the smaller lines, start up a little bit higher in the pupil, and you can just extend your strokes out. Leaving a gap between will give you a little bit of variation. Grabbing back my black pencil, and I just go over the pupil area just to deepen that up and the sides there. So it's really quite simple, but notice that we've added so much detail in there, so much more depth than what we actually had at the start. You can do a few layers of the sienna brown if you like, if you want to flatten some of that tooth. And what you can also do is grab your sharp white pencil and bring it between some of the strokes to help you get a little bit more variation. Now still using the black pencil, make sure it's nice and sharp. And what I'm going to do on these edges here is just extend the line down a little bit on an angle. Straight down. Now to get fine lines, we just want to make sure that we're not putting any pressure on the pencil. Keep it nice and soft. Okay, now I'm going to move into some lighter colors, make it a little bit less scary for us. I'm actually going to use my 20% cool grey. Now I've chosen to use cool greys here for the colouring. You can use any type of grey you like. If you only have warm greys, or you only have French greys, absolutely work with what you have in your stash. I wanted to go the cool greys today. I wanted the unicorn to almost have a bit of a shiny, ethereal, sort of iridescent look. Usually I pick warm greys when colouring something white because outside the sun comes down and adds that warm hue on top. But I wanted this to not have that warm glow. I wanted it to look more like it was a shimmery effect. So what I'm going to do with my 20% cool grey is I'm going to add in the contouring. Now with this color, it's so light. If you make a mistake or you're not happy with the lines, you can just use an eraser. Just go nice and soft through these initial steps. Now we're going to add some contouring around the eye, almost to show like the little wrinkles that it does get here. So I'm just going to start at this edge. I'm going to curve a line out toward that leaf area up top and out and down on the bottom. So just like a backwards C kind of shape. You can extend this a little bit further out as well. And I'm going to do a little eyelid, so a small line closer to the eye there. And you can even extend a little bit of shading out as well, coming down toward that contour shape. underneath the eye, a little pocket here showing a little bit of a wrinkle, a little bit of gathered skin around the eye area. It's almost like a triangular sort of shape. And keep all your shading soft. We're not just drawing lines, we're fleshing them out, adding some soft shading around. Now we know that we've got a cast shadow under the hair, so let's come in and add a nice big thick cast shadow here, come around the horn as well. Cast shadow here. And around the flower. Then we can also bring this down the side of the face. Hair is sitting in front, that's casting our shadow back. Now I'm going to make it thicker where we've got the dips in here. So sort of seeing where the hair's sort of curling back. Now this area that pops out a little bit is going to get less shadow on it because it's sort of popping out and over. Cast shadow underneath these parts of the hair as well. Sitting flat on the body there. A little bit of colour inside. Contouring here, I'm going to come along that left shoulder. Now remember that's sort of turning away, so I'm adding quite a significant amount on this side. Coming up the bone area here. I'm also going to come down and I'm going to create a new bone. So I just added some light shading here just to show that almost, I'm not sure what it's called on a horse or on a person, that clavicle bone area. I don't know if it's called the same thing. A little bit of contouring in that shoulder as well. Now coming into the neck, remember we know that the head is tilting forward. So we've got that triangular shape happening in the neck here and then the whole way underneath. I'm going to leave a gap and I'm going to do some soft shading straight down. Now the soft shading here is showing that neck muscle. So we've got contouring happening, not just leaving it plain. Coming up from that, we've got this sort of area, the cheeks here rounding out. Now we know in the cheeks with the horses, they do usually have a lot of contouring in here too. So I'm going to come along the bottom. Where it sort of comes down in that curve, I'm going to do a curve up. So in the opposite direction. Extend a little bit of shading out, and then extend the shading toward the mouth. Then we're going to add the cheekbones here. A little bit of a triangular shape up, just before it starts to round. Okay, coming into the mouth area, we're going to add shading along the bottom of the top lip. And as we start to curve toward the nostrils, I've got a line sort of coming up there as well, a little detail line, coming around the nostril shape. And then we're going to extend some lines up here, creating the really strong contours on the angles of the face. So I'm going to extend this line up toward that eye area and then fill it in a little bit. Then from here we've got the mouth and I'm extending a line up and back toward the eye as well. Now side of the nose, so what I want to think about is coming through the middle here and imagine that line coming around, and then I just extend that up toward the top. And I'm going to add some shading just softly down a little bit. Creating that contour, it's slanting away from the light there. Okay. Coming along this side. And a little bit of contouring at the edge. Now the reason why we add a little bit of shading at the edge here is because it doesn't just end. We actually want it to look like it's coming out and then curving down and away from the light to show that we still actually have an object that's three-dimensional. It's curving around on that edge there. In the nostrils, a little bit of shading straight inside, so you can add your shading in here. And I'm curving my shading back, a little bit of a circle. I want to show that we're sort of seeing up inside because it is so deep. And along that side as well. And we'll leave it at that for the moment. Now I've got just a couple more lines here, just adding some soft shading down to sort of meet what's happening at the bottom, so the sides are sort of coming in together here. And I'm going to leave a line, and I'm just going to do one more little contour toward the cheeks. So you can see all the shading here is coming in to meet each other. It's all on the same angle. So you want to make sure when you're doing this that everything's sort of running in those same lines. That's what's going to help it look neat. If you're not happy with anything, if you've been nice and light, you should be able to use an eraser here and just erase some of it and try again. We're going to deepen everything up a lot more. So even though it is quite light now, we're going to deepen it up, and so you won't be able to see a lot of the work that you've done in these early stages. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with my black pencil, and I'm going to add this to a few key areas very, very lightly. So I'm just coming around the eye contours here and the eyelid, and then a little bit in this triangle below. Cast shadow around. Because that hair's so thick, you can add a little bit of black in there. It's just going to help it just pop off a little bit more. And you can see I'm keeping my pressure pretty light at this point. I'm not adding a lot of pressure. I'm not trying to flatten any tooth or anything. And the neck area here. Inside the nose, so I'm going to come around and I'm just going to do a circle back. And then the other side as well. And then we're going to come up from the lips. So just coming across that one there. And just deepening up. Just keeping it nice and soft, a little line through. Building up a few layers at the bottom of that lip. And then just fuzzing up the edge as we get a little further out, keeping it all nice and soft. Now underneath, what we're going to do here is I'm going to leave a little gap, adding a little bit of shading along the bottom, and then I'm going to come along the underneath. Now by leaving that little gap, what it's going to help to do is it differentiates between the top and the bottom lip. So you can see it's a little bit more clear there now. A little bit of shading around the nostrils. And then on the other side, we've got the eye here. I'm just going to thicken that up a little bit so it looks a little bit more normal on that edge. Okay, now coming down into this area as well, I'm going to add just a touch of shading on that part that's sort of curving away from the light. We've got a few deep shadows in here where the hair is, so you can add some shading in there as well. And before I totally finish that, we can also come and do the ears. Now I'm just going to do a little bit of shading on the inside, cast shadow here as well. Now for the inside of the ear, I'm going to do a line straight up, and then I'm just going to draw in some sort of curly shapes on the side. I'm doing a little bit of scumbling. And scumbling is when we build up just a scribbly sort of stroke to create shading there. Now on this side, I want to show that that ear is, we're not seeing the inside, the ear is actually turned away. So I'm just going to add a little bit of shading up on this edge, and notice I've left a gap there. We'll come back to that shortly. Alright, now we want to come back to the face. Coming into the next color, it's 50% cool grey, and all we do is come straight over the top of the contouring and extend a little further out. Don't worry too much if it's not 100% neat or flattened at this point. And it's going to look quite dark in these steps. Now with this color, you can bring this one to some of those areas that we didn't touch earlier because the black was too dark. So bringing it up into some of that cheek contouring here. Also going to bring it up into the area around the mouth. Bringing this color that's a little bit lighter along the bottom of the nostril, so the area that's sort of closest to us that we can kind of see there, like this part's a little bit lighter, and then it gets darker as we get inside. Bringing this inside that mouth area as well, and you can see still leaving that gap though between top and bottom. Touch of shading, just super light, and I'm just bringing that along the top just to show that angle just as it's starting to extend down. So it just comes flat, and then we're just on that edge is where we're adding that color, showing that it's a bit darker. Okay, come down now. Adding a little bit more contouring. And then lastly, we'll come into the ears. So adding a lot of shading inside, and then a touch on those outer edges. Now in here, we're directing our shading toward the middle. And keeping that edge light, showing where that's sort of curving back, getting a little bit of reflected light on it, on that little edge. Sort of with the ears, they're sort of flat, and then the edge sort of bumps out a little bit. So that's why I've kept that a little bit lighter. And we're literally just working our way down through colors now. So the next color is 20% cool grey, and then we're just going over the top and extending further. Now you will notice that my colors are becoming quite dark the more grey that I'm adding down. This is okay because I really want to be able to show all of this contouring nice and clearly. I am actually going to be using my white at the end to tint it, to take it all down a little bit and make it appear a little softer. I'm going to bring this color along the inside of the nostril here, showing the part that's sort of curving in, but overall the nostril I want that to be quite light. Shading down on the side here. Bring around your cast shadow. Make sure you always fuzzy up any edges. If you've got any hard lines, make sure they end nice and softly all the way around. Coming into the top. And then into the neck area. Working on the muscles, adding shading to either side there, showing that it dips down. The shoulders turning away so it's a bit darker. And a little bit of muscle on this side as well. Now I talked before about wanting it to have sort of an ethereal glow about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to incorporate two sort of random colors here. I've got a little bit of beige and I'm going to bring the beige through on the cheek. I'm going to be using beige in like a purpley sort of color just to give a little bit of a glow. Bringing that along the nose. Just points where the light's going to be hitting. So I'm kind of focusing on more highlight areas through here. I'm not using a lot of it. I'm also bringing it around the nose a little bit. Come down into the body, a little bit around the neck, that highlights the area there. A little bit in the shoulder as well. You can bring a touch into the ears too. And then I'm going to swap and I'm going to bring my lavender through a few little areas too. Just real light, no pressure. No pressure on the pencil. Just giving him a little bit of a glow. Okay, let's get ready to blend it all out. So now I'm going to start with my white pencil, and I start in the white area and I'm going to blend back and over the color. Now you're going to want to take your time here. Keep the pencil nice and sharp, and I'm working in small and soft circles because I'm trying to flatten that tooth down. Now if you find that the tooth's not flattening, your strokes may be too big. So you want to try and make your strokes just a little bit smaller so you have the ability to flatten. And work nice and slow, be patient as you work, and just take your time. It's a really great activity here to practice mindfulness because all the hard work is done, all that thinking about where colors are going to go, where shadows are going to go, and now you're just blending out. So really allow yourself just to focus on what you're doing here. Focus on these colors coming together, the contouring around the face and around the eyes. Try not to let your mind wander. It's all about you and your project that you're working on right now. So always start in the white area and work back and toward the color. That way you're not going to be pushing the pigment and lose the shapes that you've made because you're going to always be going in the direction of the strokes that you put down. I'm not bringing this color over the black. I want to keep that nice and rich. And notice with the white, it's just softening all the colors a little bit. So what looked quite dark before ends up being a lot lighter at the end. But it's all of these shadows, all the detail that you're adding here now, which helps the horse look, or the unicorn, look realistic. Coming into the ears, and again blending toward the color. And that's all there is to it. So you can basically just keep working until you're happy with those contours. But if I zoom out, notice how much that's transformed the image. And we've just looked at creating subtle shading on the parts of the muscles, the contours, the parts that are slanting away from the light there, and not being afraid to add in color on an object that's usually what we associate with white. And it's really just helped to add in a lot more detail. Right, getting ready for the last part of the tutorial, we're going to do the horn and the flowers, really nice and quick and easy. Remember though, if you feel stuck at this point, reach out, ask for help, let's do it together. I'll see you in the next chapter of the tutorial to finish up our unicorn. Okay, ready to start on the markers portion of the video here. Now I'm going to be using a series of grays, and I'm actually going to be using, I've got a really light cool gray that I'm going to be using here, but mostly my colors are the BVs. So for those of you who aren't using Copics, these are really soft gray purples. Now if your brand doesn't have gray purples in it, you'll notice I've probably picked cool grays for you, which are more blue based grays rather than red based of the warm grays. Usually when I color white things, I want to use warm grays, and that's because if it's outside, the sun comes down and it casts sort of that warm golden hue. However, with our unicorn here today, I wanted it to have more of that sort of iridescent, shiny, sparkly sort of look. So I felt that the cool grays were more suited, or the more purple-based grays are more suited, just to give it that iridescent sort of quality. And you can see as well I've got a few other colors that are shining through. I do add a little bit of purple and even some beigey colors, again just to enhance that sort of glow. So we went through all the contours at the start of this chapter, so let's go ahead and get coloring. I'm going to start by doing the eye, because as you can see if I put these together, look at how different they are. And that's because this one has no shading, it has no focus at the moment. So the first thing I want to actually do is lower the gaze. Now you can use this on any image at all, but you'll find if you get an image like this, a really good tip is I'm going to use BV29 here now. I come straight over the top. Now when you hit this edge, I want you to draw a line and then a line further down, make a little highlight. But I've added the color straight along the top, and all of a sudden that's just lowered the gaze down a little bit. Now I'm going to add a little bit of color to it as well. I've got a touch of E29. Now with this color, I want you to do little strokes the whole way around. Now if you struggle with little strokes, the good thing about this is you can start the whole way back in the pupil. And then by the time you're extending out, you're just seeing the very edge. Next color is E25, and you're just doing the same thing. So we're doing some really nice brown eyes here, extending our strokes out. And then E23. Same thing, leave a gap between. And how much different does that look already? And we hardly did anything there. We added just some really soft shading and it's just brought the eye back down, changed the focus. Now, as I do the shading all over, it can be a little bit scary. And we talked about before, we're actually using color here. We're not keeping it super light because we need to show all the muscles, all the contours and the slants that are happening here. Now, instead of jumping straight to darker colors, I'm going to use a really light gray to map in these sections. And that way, if I make a mistake, I can just go over the top and you won't be able to see it at the end. So a really light color, I'm going to use C0 here. I'd recommend using a 0 or a 1. And that way, if you make a mistake, it's easy to fix. Okay, so C0, let's go and add in our contours. So I'm going to start at the eye area here. Starting along this edge, I'm going to draw a circle or a curved line up toward the leaf here and down a little bit as well. It's almost like a backward C, and I'm going to extend that out just a little bit further as well. Now I'm going to also draw in a little eyelid here, so a bit closer to the eye, and you can even extend a little bit further out. Now on these edges of the eye, I'm going to extend 2 lines straight. So parallel there, so going straight down. Coming on the inside, we're adding in a little bit of contouring, a little bit of like a triangular shape here. And then I've got another little line. So we're just sort of following the shape of the eye around to add in that shading there. Now we know the hair is sitting in front of the face, so we're going to add a nice big cast shadow around that. So just trace the whole way around the hair. And come down the side. Now the areas here that are popping out, I'm not going to add big shadows around, but these areas that are popping back, we're going to add a larger shadow, just to show that we can sort of see in behind that curl a little bit there. And around here, we can add a cast shadow beneath each of these little sections as well. Now coming into the neck, so remember the head is tilting down, so we've got a nice strong shadow there, and then you can curve the line back like a little triangle. Now what I'm also going to do is use this color and add a second line down, and that's creating the contour from a muscle in the neck as well. Down in the front, so I'm going to add some shading here on the side. This is the shoulder that's turning back and away from the light, so it's going to be in shadow a little bit more. I'm going to leave a gap and add in another line here. It's almost, I don't know what this is called on the horse, but it's like the clavicle area on the human. So adding in some of the bones and the contours to this area as well. And a little bit of shading down the side. Now remember, when you look at this when it's all done, it's going to look a bit messy. It's not a digital medium, it's a hand-done medium. It's like paint. When you look up close, you see strokes, you see a little bit of messy. That's absolutely okay. It's not going to be 100% blended. Remember, we judge from distance. We don't look at it up close. Let's keep going. Coming into the cheek area now. Where I've got this curve down and top, I'm going to do a curve the opposite direction, creating our cheek area, the hollows of the cheeks. And I'm going to extend a little bit of shading straight up from there to create the cheekbones. I'm going to do one more little bit of shading around the eye area here and extending a little bit back. The nose area, I'm going to add a little bit of shading around here as well. A little bit of a line is going to come up straight through the nostril. And a little bit of shading around that top lip too. Now from here, I'm going to extend a little line up toward the eye area. So what you'll notice is all the strokes are going to come in to meet each other here. We're working along the long lines of the face of the horse. So the lines here coming up, then from the mouth, that's going to extend back toward the eye area as well there. Now on the side, so the nose here, we've got the flat on top, and then it slants down and away. So what I'm going to do here, nice big long strokes from about where that nose is to almost the eye. Keep it parallel with this line. So you want the same sort of shape. And just doing a bit of a feathered stroke down, just nice and soft. And then we'll come along that side of the nose as well. And up from the nostril. Now in the ears, I'm going to add a little bit of shading to this side, showing that that's sort of curving away, we can't see inside it. Now I've left a little gap along the very edge here. I want the ear to look flat and then a little raised ridge. This side, you can see inside it, so I'm going to add a little bit of shading to either side and a line straight up. So that's all of our mapping. So we've mapped in where we think all the shadows are going to go. Now let's come back and add a little bit more depth. So the next color I'm going to use is BB29, and I'm going to add this only to the areas that I want to be quite dark. So I'm coming inside the nose here first, tracing around. I'm going to do a circle back. So what I'm wanting to do here is you've almost got the nose like this, where you've got the lighter area at the bottom, and as you get further in, it gets darker, so we can't see up there. Adding a little bit to the other side as well. And you can also come around the shapes here. Now I'm also going to bring this color into the mouth area, extending that little line up between as well. This is more of the pattern, so a lot of white horses and unicorns have a little bit of black around the mouth area. So this is the pattern we're sort of working with. Now when we get to the bottom lip, what I want to do is I'm going to come around the shape, and then I'm going to leave a gap here between bottom and top lip. And that's going to help to differentiate the difference between the two there for us. Now the only other place I'm going to add this dark color is I'm going to come up to the top and I'm going to add it in this one ear. A little bit of shading, and I'm going to come straight through the middle, and I'm just going to bump a few little lines up, just to show that sort of crease inside is extending further back. Then I've got BB25, and we're going to blend out some of these darker areas. Coming now into the mouth. Extending out a little bit, and I'm just using a feathered stroke here. So feathering is when we overlap the strokes. Unlike flicking, we don't want to see the texture. Again, if you're not sure about how to do some of the strokes like feathering, check out that Free Markers 101 class. It's got tons of helpful information. Now with this color, if you're comfortable with fine lines, I want to extend these lines out. Now if you're not comfy, you can leave the step and do it with a lighter one. Do it with the next color, the BB23. Okay, now I am ready to come in with BB23. Let's start firstly along this sort of nose and mouth area. Just slowly blending that out. And bringing this color along the rest of the nostril there. Now with this color, I'm not adding it everywhere, so let's be a little bit light with it. I'm going to bring a little bit around the eye. Doing the eyelids. Now hold that marker close to the nib, just like the hair strokes. And just do the best you can. We're going to be blending a lot of these lines out anyway. Cast shadow, definitely want to add this color to the cast shadow around the hair because it is quite thick and it's popping off the page. It's just going to help that to be even richer for us. The neck area here, definitely adding in some strong shadows here. So you don't always have to use your very darkest color everywhere. So you may notice like with the darkest color, we only really came around areas that we wanted to look quite deep and far away. And then this color, I'm still not bringing it over everywhere, but I'm bringing it over more areas. This is areas that I want, again, to look quite dark. Not as deep, though, as the BB29. Next color, BB20. And with this one, we're going to add in most of the other contouring now. And this just allows us to keep the blend a lot lighter as well. Bringing this one really right around the nose area now. I'm also going to bring this along the inside of the nostril, just showing where it's sort of curving down and away from the light. And now we've got a lot of that contouring we were showing a little bit earlier as well. Curving up, following those diagonal lines. Some of these strokes along here. So adding the darker color to the top. So I've got the flat plane, and as soon as it slants down, that's where your darkest color is running. Add a little bit of this color along the edge as well. I'm not going to do this part. I want that to be a little bit lighter. Coming into the ears. Along that base as well. On this side, I'm going to add that contouring up and along the edge there. Coming down now underneath, so neck area here. And all the areas that you're adding these darker colors to are going to end up looking further away from your eye. Doesn't mean that the horse is going to look grey, it means that you're showing depth. You've got things happening here, it's not just a flat object. This is what makes a world of difference to the shading, adding in all the depth, creating your contouring. You can see already how much more detail he has just by adding these colors through. C0 is next, and this color is really nice and light. So we can use this color to blend out a lot of the contouring that we did. So we just pull it through, multiple strokes straight over the top until the lines between the colors are a lot softer. And then you can bring this color again through that side. Notice it just helps just to take the edge. So we work from dark to light like this so that we can really softly finish up the colors. Again, remember, it looks a little messy up close. That's totally okay. All of your strokes, want to make sure it's all in the same linear direction. Help to keep your focus nice and clean. Now before I finish up, I'm going to add a few touches of some of the other colors here to create that sort of iridescent look. So I've got E50, and I'm going to bring a touch of this more beige color through some of my highlight areas where the light's hitting. So just bringing this through, nice big thick strokes, use the side of your marker and get them nice and long. Now if you're using bullet tips, you can also use this chisel side for softer strokes. So that's always a way to do it as well. I totally missed his neck, so I'm going to bring in that C's area there. I'm just adding in that muscle contouring again. So the good thing is, if you ever forget a step, you just grab the markers, pop them back in. E50, bringing this through. BV00. It's a little bit of a purple hue here, and again it's just going to help with that sort of iridescent glow, and I'm not adding it everywhere, just a few sort of select areas. I like to keep this one more to the shadows rather than the highlights. And to finish up my final step, I like to grab my colorless blender and then just bring this quickly through one quick coat of color just over where the grays and the colors that you just added, that E50 and the BV0000, just where they ended, and that'll just take the edge off them. It'll just soften down just a little bit more to the white of the paper. Not bringing over everything, just over where the colors have ended. Okay, and just zooming out now. And that's the contouring there done. So you can see it's, even though we're working with quite dark colors, and I'm sure it felt too dark a lot of times, when you actually step back and hold it at distance, it looks so different because you can see the majority of it is white, but you've got those contours happening, the shapes coming out of the face here that make him look three-dimensional. Now, if you still feel stuck, please make sure to reach out. I'd absolutely love to help with any step at all. Otherwise, we are almost done. The next part of the tutorial, we're just going to be going through the flowers and the horn to finish up. Welcome to the last chapter of the video tutorial. Now this one's really fun, quick and easy. We're going to do the horn and the flowers. Now I've kept these techniques simple but effective. So we're going to look at an iridescent look for the horn. Now this can be used on anything at all. It's a really great pearlescent color as well. Great for under the sea, things like pearls and everything like that. And then with the roses, I'm doing a really soft two-tone color effect, where I'm keeping the rose as mainly a really light beige and just coloring the very tips. So it's not a very strong look, it's a really soft, pretty vintage look. And that way it's not really overpowering or competing with the hair, which is our main feature here. We don't really want to take the focus away from the hair. That's the main point. So both the horn and the roses here complement using same colors from what we've been using in the hair. So we're always drawing back, tying everything in together and thinking about what we want the main focus to be. So say I came along and did the flowers in orange. There's no other orange in the scene. So all of a sudden that orange really stands out. And do I necessarily want my flowers to be that focus? So that's something to always think about. What is the main part that you're trying to communicate of your image? What's the feature? And once you've found the feature, don't take away from that. Make that your focal point. And that's what we're aiming to do here by keeping the hair as our standout. I'll see you in the markers class further in the video. Okay, pencil users. So we're going to do this horn here now. Really quick and easy, pearlescent look. So we use the white to actually blend, tint, and soften the colors down. So I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to start with a little bit of my lilac. And all I'm going to do here is come along the base and then along the sides. Now when I get to the top, I'm going to draw a little bit of a line extending in from each side, and we're going to leave that top ridge uncolored, creating a little bit of a lip. Same on this side, so come along the edge here, cast it along the bottom. So I want it to look like each of these sections is sort of sitting behind like this, so the cast shadow is above this one. A little bit of that lip as well. Make sure that you're fuzzying up the edges as you work, so keep it nice and soft so the colors will blend it in nicely. I'm not laying down a huge amount of this color as well, just a little bit to help us show that the horn is rounded. That's why I'm adding my color on the sides, showing that those sides are curving away from the light there. And then we have our cast shadow along the bottom. Okay, blending out now, and I'm going to use a really soft touch of lavender coming straight over the top and extending a little further in. But you can see I'm still leaving a good portion uncolored. Make sure you fuzzy up the edges, keep the color soft. Next color is hot pink, and I'm going to add a touch of this color. You can see I'm alternating either side, so I'm going left and right. Then the next color I'm going to use is light green, and I'm going to place this on the other side to where I added the pink. So when we work with pearlescent or iridescent colors, think about adding in a few little accents, so the shine, how the color changes when the light hits. And a little bit of yellow straight through that middle. Then what I do is I grab my white pencil, make sure it's nice and sharp. I come through that top lip first, straight through the middle, then back and over everything to blend. And what I should be able to get is a really soft pearly look, blending all these colors together. So this technique looks really good on, say, pearl necklaces, but using less of the purple. So what you might do is use just a really soft purple, just that lavender instead of the lilac, and you might use a little bit less of it. I wanted this to be that sort of pearly look, but with a purple undertone. So I still wanted purple to be the main sort of color rather than a white one. But see how you get that really soft transition through the colors there. That's the horn all done, so it was pretty easy. So now coming to the two little flowers here, again, really simple technique. I'm just going to add color to the very tips. So what I'm going to do here is I've got Parma Violet, and I'm going to add Parma Violet just along the edges of each of the petals in this larger flower. Some of these petals get quite small, so you may need to sharpen up your pencil and just take your time working on each little one. On some of these bigger areas, you can add a touch of color just to the top. Now when it gets really little, just do your best, just add a little bit of color in just for variation. Okay, next color that I'm going to use is a little bit of the lilac, and we just blend out a small way, not too far. Going to do the inside now, and I'm going to use that beige. So bringing the beige just along the inside edges, so the opposite of where you just added the purple. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my white and I'm just going to really softly blend. So I'm coming from the middle, back and over the beige, from the middle, back and over the purple. From the middle, back and over the beige, and then back and over the purple. And that should blend and flatten. Now if you feel like after the white you don't have as much depth as you'd like, you can just pop in again and repeat until you're happy with the look. I wanted this to be really soft though on my one. Really soft and simple. Now for the blues, I'm going to do just a touch of Copenhagen blue along the edge. A little bit of non-photo blue. Then your touches of beige. And then we can bring that white in just to blend. So blend down toward the beige and blend up toward the blue. This is a really pretty and simple technique for doing vintage florals as well. You're keeping all of the depth because you're outlining each petal essentially. So you're still keeping your light source and everything there, but it's so quick and easy to do and really effective. Okay, and then the very, very last step is just those leaves. Let's keep it nice and easy. We're going to do dark green, cast shadow all the way around here first. And you can draw a line down the middle of each one if you can. And then I'm just going to blend out. I'm going to blend out with a touch of olive green straight over the top. And I'm extending out a little bit to the side. And then true green. Now this is such a secondary object here, the leaves are not a main focus. I'm just trying to get a little bit of color down and still make sure that it has contrast between light and shade. But don't worry too much about the detail in here. And that, if I zoom out, is my unicorn all done. So you can see we've gone through so many techniques here today in this free class. Even though it's quite a simple image, we've looked at techniques that can be applied to absolutely anything at all. We've looked at rainbow hair, iridescent and pearlescent finishes, flowers, contouring, coloring white animals. Lots of different techniques for you to practice, to work on and refine. Now I hope that you've made some mistakes here today. I hope that you've challenged yourself. Because if you've done those two things, you've grown here today. Regardless of what that coloring looks like in front of you, you've made your next step forward. So right now, I want you to tell yourself, really good job. Big pat on the back. You've done so much more for yourself by trying this than those who are too afraid to start, because you're really taking those next steps. Now, if you're sitting there and you feel a little bit concerned or confused on any aspect, again, make sure you reach out. Don't just put it aside. It's the most crucial thing to do. But make sure before assessing your work that you shake everything out, you go for a lap around the room. Don't scrutinize your coloring in that up-close mode. We need to give ourselves a little bit of perspective and hold it back at arm's length so we can see how it's all come together as a whole. So I really hope that you've enjoyed coloring this one up with me. If you have enjoyed it, I'd love if you would share about it. If you've got social media or a blog or anything like that, share it with some people who'd love to learn as well with this freebie. And hopefully I'll see you in our classrooms over at kitandclouder.com. Thank you so very much for watching. Okay, welcome to the last chapter of the video tutorial in markers. So we're doing the iridescent or pearlescent horn here today. It's such a quick and easy technique. It's so effective, really good for things like pearls. I've used it for jellyfish. You can use it on many different things. So popping this out the way, let's jump in and have a go. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with a little bit of V15. And I'm just going to apply this to the sides. I want the horn to look like it's rounded. So those edges are rounding away from the light, bringing the color up on the sides. Now when I get to the top, I'm leaving a little line and drawing these two lines in. I'm going to leave a little bit of a top lip there. If you're not comfortable with fine lines, you can just leave that out. But I'm trying to create a little bit of a top lip before it rounds down. You can see cast shadows here on the bottom. So thinking of it more like the shapes are like this here, overlapping this way. Cast shadows underneath this one. That's overlapping. That's exactly what we're doing here as well. Okay, next color is my V12. And all I'm doing is going straight over the top and extending just a little further in. Keeping it really soft. I don't want to cover over everything. Notice I've left the middle, it still is white. Now we're going to come in and add some of the colors that are going to show that iridescent look. So I'm going to add here a touch of RV00, and I'm going to alternate the sides. So I'm adding it to the left, then the right, left, right, and I'm bringing this the whole way down. And then I've got a little bit of G00, and I'm going to do this to the other sides. And then a touch of white 11. I'm going to bring that through the middle. And then all we do now is grab our colorless blender and we start at the top and we just rub straight over all the colors. And that'll just soften them down and it just helps to blend them in together, taking the edges away. And that gives us our pearlescent finish. Now the colors that you've used in there indicate where the light's hitting that material and you get the sort of glow of those other colors showing through there. So nice and quick and easy. Coming through to the flowers now, we're almost done. I'm just going to add a little bit of shading with my greens. Now I've got G94. I'm adding shading to the leaves here. Now on some of these leaves, if you're comfy with fine lines, you can do a line down the middle. Now if you're not, you can just do your line on the side, whatever is okay with you. And then we just blend out. So YG63 is next. Go over the top and extend out. Now the leaves are such a tiny little detail, so don't place too much emphasis on them. You don't even see them in the end. It's just I'm trying to make sure, this is YG13 now, I'm trying to make sure that I've just incorporated light source and color depth on them and I haven't just forgotten about them. Okay, now with the roses, we're going to do that really pretty soft two-tone look. So I'm going to start with a little bit of V15 on this bigger rose, and all I'm going to do is just outline the outer edges of each petal. That's all there is to it. Just outlining. Now, this technique, the good thing about it is it still incorporates light and shade, and we're still showing each petal. So it's really effective without really having to add a lot of detail to it. And it's not overpowering on the image as well. Okay, and some of these small ones here, you can see I've added a little bit of shading underneath. Okay, V12 is next. and just coming over the edge, just blending in only a short way, not a lot, just really little in toward that middle. Now E50, a little bit of a beigey color, and I'm going to bring this along the bottom edge, so all the sides that are opposite. This is going to give us that really pretty two-tone look. Then I just grab my colorless blender and I just bring this straight through, just to soften. It's really nice and light. Now you can repeat everything again. I'll show you the difference between the two. Oh, hopefully they'll fit in. I might have to zoom out a touch. Yes. Okay, so you can see the difference. This one's got a lot richer, and that's purely because I repeated a second time. So repeating steps can really help elements just to stand out a little bit more. I'm just going to leave mine as is here. I'm going to move on to the blue. BO2, adding this to all of the outer edges. So if you ever finish a technique and you feel like your colors aren't as rich, just pop in and repeat everything. Sometimes I might even repeat something 2 or 3 times until I'm happy with that look. And it gets a little bit deeper every time after. B00 is next. And see, just going over the top. Blending out, and then to finish off, a touch of your E50 and just bring that along the bottom, and then you can bring your colorless blender and it just gets rid of any lines, and then repeat as necessary until you're happy. And then if I zoom out, that's my unicorn all done. So you can see we've gone through so many techniques here today in this free class. Even though it's quite a simple image, we've looked at techniques that can be applied to absolutely anything at all. We've looked at rainbow hair, iridescent and pearlescent finishes, flowers, contouring, coloring white animals. Lots of different techniques for you to practice, to work on and refine. Now I hope that you've made some mistakes here today. I hope that you've challenged yourself. Because if you've done those 2 things, you've grown here today. Regardless of what that coloring looks like in front of you, you've made your next step forward. So right now, I want you to tell yourself, really good job. Big pat on the back. You've done so much more for yourself by trying this than those who are too afraid to start, because you're really taking those next steps. Now, if you're sitting there and you feel a little bit concerned or confused on any aspect, again, make sure you reach out. Don't just put it aside. It's the most crucial thing to do. But make sure before assessing your work that you shake everything out, you go for a lap around the room. Don't scrutinize your coloring in that up-close mode. We need to give ourselves a little bit of perspective and hold it back at arm's length so we can see how it's all come together as a whole. So I really hope that you've enjoyed coloring this one up with me. If you have enjoyed it, I'd love if you would share about it. If you've got social media or a blog or anything like that, share it with some people who'd love to learn as well with this freebie. And hopefully I'll see you in our classrooms over at kitandclouder.com. Thank you so very much for watching.